now is William Jacobson, law professor at Cornell. Professor, again, we're just searching for answers here. He spent 6 years at UPenn, highly educated. We don't know what drove him to this, heinous act. But it is stunning to see these professors at these elite schools implicitly or explicitly celebrate what happened last week.
It's disgusting, but it's not surprising. I mean, I've observed over the years, both at Cornell and elsewhere, a growing radicalization of the faculty, a growing attitude that activism as a faculty member is part of your teaching mission. And you just quoted a couple of people who expressed that view. They view themselves as being there in order to ignite the students, in order to encourage the students to protest. This has been building for a long time. It didn't just happen. You've played some scenes from the anti-Israel protests on campuses, which have been in many cases very violent, a lot of violent rhetoric, campuses imbued with the concept that we will get what we want by any means necessary. That's the common phrase that you hear. So there's a very radicalized culture. Whether it impacted him is something that needs to be looked into. We need to understand it.
Well, it's just what happened to him, period. And he did spend 6 years there. It's not that much time. He graduated in 2016 from high school. So he was there when, the cauldron was clearly brewing. But, William, here was what Senator Elizabeth Warren took away from all of this. Watch.
Look, we'll say it over and over. Violence is never the answer. This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of United Health. But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
Yeah. William, you can only push people so far. Well, they weren't saying that on January 6th. They never say that when a pro-life protester protests outside of an abortion clinic. They think it's fine to arrest those people, as we see happening all over, the Western world.
Well, the concept that you can only push people so far, what she's saying is that she's justifying what happened. At one breath, she says we can't justify it. On the other hand, you can only push people so far. Well, it's not clear how he was being pushed. He had a very privileged upbringing. He apparently had very good job prospects, came from a wealthy family. How was it that he couldn't be pushed any further? When you get somebody from that background, and a lot of, in our history, domestic terrorists have been from privileged background, like the Weather Underground people. If you're going to have the Elizabeth Warren attitude that you're entitled to do whatever you need to do by any means necessary because you've been pushed too far in your own lived experience, you've been pushed too far. That's a recipe for disaster. Unfortunately, it's a recipe that is prevalent on a lot of campuses.
William, aren't I right about this whole lived experience phrase that he shouted out while he was being, escorted into the courthouse? That's the usual claptrap we hear at, small group seminars at any Ivy League institution or any institution today, justifying just about anything.
Yeah, well, lived experience is the wording used when somebody can't prove something, when they don't have a real argument. It's like, well, I've experienced, in my experience. And healthcare is a good example. My truth. There's no objective reality. That's the whole critical theory destruction of the academy of education, is that there's no real truth. It's just how I experience things and how I feel about things. And that's the prevalent ideology on campuses, just about everywhere, but certainly at Penn, at Cornell, at Yale, at the so-called elite institutions, that how you feel is most important, not what the truth is. And when you hear truth you don't like, you get angry.
William, we're having you back. This is an issue we are not dropping. Whether this case goes away or we find some other motive here, this is not going away. And parents have to understand what's happening at these schools. So does the federal government. William, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.